It's all gone wrong.
Was it ever right?
As you can see, ladies and gentlemen, everything is going wrong this evening. I hope you can hear us. Should we just stop it?
Hello.
I think we're live. I have no idea anymore.
Yeah, we're live. I apologise. I'm still not very well.
Well, nor's the internet apparently. So
no, everything seems to be broken today. So it's going well. Welcome to November Foxtrot, the show that's full of enthusiasm and vigor.
Yeah. Welcome.
We're back. Not joined, unfortunately, again by Lance tonight. He has had to disappear off to work. So hopefully we will see him very soon. But tonight we're going to be chatting about MilSim factions, I guess. So we've kind of covered this topic a little bit before, but trying to go into it a little bit more new detail. We're joined in the virtual audience by Lanav Challenge, Pegasus, Kenny Rebel, Marky Mark, Les, Gavin, the Roscoe. Good evening, and welcome.
Evenings.
How are you, Andy?
All right, tired. Getting there. I'm not enjoying these. I'm not enjoying these 4 o'clock wake ups. I tell you, yes. Nope.
Yeah, you're still trying to get Blackstone all sorted and ready to go.
So a little shout out to the. I think they're probably listening. I hope they are. They said they would. But they got a big team up there tonight decorating, getting it all nice. We've been building some more walls. Oh, mate, it's not just wallpapering. We're having proper doors fitted. We're having it's all being painted. They're starting to look like proper houses.
Nice.
Yeah,
that's cool. So I can't remember if we talked about this or not. I don't think we did we? Because I wasn't here.
No, last week we were off, weren't we?
We were off. So basically, Andy and I had the absolute pleasure. I mean, less of a pleasure for you because obviously you've been up there helping build it and everything like that. So I had the absolute pleasure of being invited to the kind of the first initial trial of the Blackstone CQB site. Andy's sporting the patch there. I unfortunately don't have the patch to hand. I am so
a bit of an angle.
No, that's fine. It's lovely. It's lovely. It's more than
these glow in the dark?
Yes.
Didn't realise that until I turned the light off and it was sitting by my bed and I was like, what the hell is that?
So basically it's an absolutely wicked site. Now Andy's obviously been working there, so he's got a lot more visibility of the whole thing. I unfortunately have only had the pleasure of attending once, and it was all plywood walls and breeze blocks and stuff at the time. But even just that was wicked. So if you get the pleasure of rocking up between now and when it's opened or after it's opened, etc., then I can promise you that it had something special to it, even at the state that I saw it in. We've got some little behind the scenes footage that we've recorded. I died over the last week and a half, so I haven't had to edit it properly. And to be honest with you, I don't think the footage that we recorded will probably do it justice now, bar the fact that it just looks like a CQB site. But it's got 2 stories. You've got a kind of a garage area. You've got a shopping centre. You've got Stabby Alley.
It's Stabby Alley, yeah.
So yeah, no, it's a wicked place. So if you are around Huntingdon, or within a reasonable travel distance of Huntingdon, I highly recommend getting down there and giving it a go once you can.
Pop in. We're there. Yeah. From 4
also
to 2.
you don't even need a gun. Like I ran around I ran around with a pistol and a knife, and of my pistol I only had 24 rounds in one magazine, and that was more than enough per game. You wouldn't need more than that. That's not to say because I get shot out or anything like that, but it's just you get some sneaky and get some knife kills and stuff in. So yeah, highly recommend it.
But we do have an opening date as well, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, do you? That's exciting.
Yes, we do. But no, I'll tell you, because we're going to have Tony on next week, hopefully, if things pan out, which is going to be the show before it opens. So the grand opening is on the 23rd of this month. And if you want to book on and get onto some of the games, then by all means jump onto the Rift website, which is www.riftairsoft.co.uk, and the bookings will be open very shortly. We'll do a little update, so keep an eye on our socials for that as well. I shall be there. Mike, you're not able to make that, are you?
I can't make the 23rd because I've got some family thing basically.
That's not.
It's a Christmas fair that I'm going to. So yeah,
it's an airsoft Christmas fair. Just say that.
I know, but unfortunately, Andy, the problem I have is that what with work and then more work and then decorating and then airsoft, it leaves very little time for family. And
you've got to decorate before Christmas.
Yeah. That's what James, exactly. Does that mean you won't be at Mac Delta then, Andy?
Yes. Because I've put so much bloody effort into this. I want to see the bloody thing open.
It is a shame. I don't know what the latest with Lance is on Mac Delta. I believe that he may be working that weekend. So I'm not sure. I can't make it, unfortunately. And to be honest with you, I am still in no fit state admin-wise. Forget my health at the moment, but admin-wise, I have stuff everywhere.
I've seen his house. He's not ready to even camp in the back garden, let alone go out for
one thing I have had delivered though, and I want to give a little shout out, just changing the subject slightly, to 24 Delta Surplus, who have been advertising some stuff. And it turns out,
arrived?
Yeah. Turns out there's another. So for those who don't know, Solo International were basically the company pre-Osprey, right? So Osprey and Solo International stuff are very similar, if not, the same. But it turns out that there's another Osprey vest that I didn't own. So I'd like to present to you. The High Vis Osprey vest, which I am so chuffed with. So this will be sported with my High Vis ghillie suit. I'm going to be putting together I've decided I'm going to go down the route of a HSE SWAT team. I'm going to put a big patch on the front that says HSE SWAT. I'm going to write safety down the gun so I can shoot you with safety. I've got a hard hat already. Have I got a tactic? Oh no, I've got a Mark 6 with a high vis helmet cover on, and I've been looking into those road beacons that you can get that flash.
Oh yeah.
Around. So I was going to get one of those for the top of the helmet as well. So basically that'll be something a little bit quirky. So there you go. Yeah, the high vis Osprey vest, which is, I mean, I won't lie. This light doesn't do it justice. This is very bright.
As soon as it pops up, didn't it? I tagged you and you were like, on it. I'm already there.
I'd already bought it by the time that you tagged me in it. That's the thing. It was already winging its way to me by then. So yes, firstly, screw everyone that's tagged me in it, because I'm going to be, I'm a sucker for it. Oh man, Pegasus, you need a tactical clipboard holster. Yes.
Stop giving him ideas.
This will be amazing. So yeah, basically, I'm very excited. 24 Delta Surplus. I think Ian is actually one of our viewers to the show as well. So yes, sir. Thank you very much. Big shout out to you.
Yes, he's got a good little shop.
Yeah,
get some good stuff in now and again.
Regarding Operation Mac Delta, James said, I guess this saves me from having to haul your lifeless bodies off-site at Index.
I was fine at Index last time.
James, I was absolutely fine too.
Yeah, I was chipper. By that
Andy
point.
was fresher than he'd ever been.
Yeah. I'm really red. Why am I really red?
A Kosh patch on the back. That'd be amazing. That's a great idea.
Kosh patch.
Oh no, you know what I need? Like little Kosh stickers on all the grenades. That'd be good. Like a Kosh pouch. Oh, this is brilliant. Good evening, call sign samurai. Just popped up. So hello, good evening.
Yeah, I didn't think you were going mad. I just thought you're mad about
the very scattergun at the moment. Not going to lie, it's like shooting from the hip. Right, let's talk about factions. So, a request that goes
high vis apparently.
Yeah. Oh man, can you imagine? Yeah, go on. Sorry, go on.
No, you go.
I was just going to say if we did Phoenix 2 and one of the teams is just like a whole load of roadmen, but by not like roadmen like the cool gangster. I mean like literally high vis roadmen, and that's their like, insignia. That'd be amazing.
Yeah, that'd be good fun.
Sorry, God, what were you going to say?
Big shout out to Vortex. If Chris is listening, this is their new range of hats. It is the most comfortable hat I've ever put on in my life. The padding.
Did Ash give that to you?
No, I bought it like with physical money, with no discount or anything. I was like,
Ash, if you're in the chat, let me know if you've already got one because I'm guessing you do.
But these are the new ones.
It's good.
Oh, mate, it's so cool. It's like putting a cloud on your head. It's like basically putting Under Armour on your head. Like the padding on right around this bit and all around the side is beyond comfortable.
Jigglypuff dust. Does the hat come with the lifetime VIP warranty?
Yes. I've bought two of these now. So one's going to be kept nice and neat, and the other one's going to be worn for out about a sweaty, shooty. And then I may have bought another one. Like in a different pattern.
That's cool. I like it. I like the patch on the front. The patch is cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. USA flag. Well, as we know it today, I mean, obviously that may all change when the Civil War happens in the next few months, but we'll wait and see.
The other one's all the way over there.
A big shout out to our. Sorry, just a big shout out to our US followers as well, or listeners and the like. I say followers. I don't think many people follow us. People listen. So yeah, big shout out to yourselves.
Who won, by the way?
If you voted, Trump won. So if you voted for Trump, congratulations. And if you didn't vote for Trump, commiserations. But yeah, I'm not going to turn this into a politics show. Nope. This is definitely outside the remit of November Foxtrot.
Well done to Trump.
Yay, democracy.
Yeah. Although I like generally, I try to follow the election. They do it some weird way, don't they?
Oh yes, the old electoral college and gerrymandering.
I was like, well, whatever. Surely you just vote for who you want. And whoever gets the most votes wins.
We'll come back to this at the end of the show, but I've got a really good idea for how elections should be run. Which involves the complete removal of democracy in its entirety. So, yeah, we'll talk about that later. Let's get into
games.
Let's get into the content of the show. If you are in the virtual audience this evening, we would like you to throw into the chat any of your kind of favorite factions that you've done. The more unique, the more interesting, the better. Be that sort of specialist roles within kind of a NATO faction. So, for example, if you were like an EOD team or something like that. Basically, I want to hear your stories of some of the more interesting factions that you've done. So yeah, stick a little Q at the beginning because I'll be honest with you, I can't look for any other letters now when we go through the chat. But we can come back to those.
Just put answer. Just put answer.
Yeah, well, answer would work. To be fair.
Yeah, like just make it blatantly obvious for us because you can clearly tell that nothing has gone right this evening. So. See, look, he's dying again.
I'm going to have to keep ducking away every once in a while, and I'm hoping that some of the other symptoms of my horrible disease do not impart themselves this evening because I may have to duck away for a little bit longer than I planned. So we'll wait and see on that one. Good evening or afternoon, morning, Phil.
That was more information that they wanted to hear.
That's fine. I'm a sharer.
You could just dive it yourself or tampon.
Oh, to be fair, I do have a load of nappies upstairs, but.
Yeah.
Right, Andy, I've got a question for you. Yes. What is a faction within the context of Airsoft MilSim?
A faction is a group of individuals portraying a faction.
Yeah, no, that's fair.
Basically,
So
yeah, it's basically
team,
a group
isn't
of
it?
people that are a team of that are portraying the team set out by the organisers. May that be good guys, bad guys, or no one knows.
So as a little cheeky follow up, and this worked better when there were going to be three of us on the show, because otherwise it's like a Q&A to the group rather than just me bullying Andy with various questions. But
fun.
Andy, give us a follow up in terms of the importance of factions for role playing and adding immersion.
Makes it more fun.
Exactly.
And also, if you're also on one, all of you are on one team, it gets a bit boring. Oh yeah, we're just 15 guys just walking around a wood.
We're just on constant patrol.
Yeah, and stand to.
Oh my god, can you imagine if everyone was on the same team for an event and you just stag duty for like 3 hours? Just
Yeah, yeah. This is when James does the ultimate sim, and it's literally just real life, and you're just got to stand on, like, you've got to be on gate duty for 6 hours,
just cleaning porter cabins.
Yeah, and just like wandering around getting dinner and stuff. Bit of PT at lunch.
Right, so let's cover the kind of the more we have done this before on a previous show, so I don't want to spend too long talking about this, but let's go through some of them, like the more common factions. So if you want to talk about NATO ones first, Andy, and then I'll pick up kind of the next one as we go through.
Well, I don't know. NATO is sort of your NATO forces, your European and a few others forces, mainly dictated by camouflage and your equipment. So you'd normally be wearing, most people tend to wear multicam or MTP or some sort of variation on that. Hard hats, head covers are normally a must. Radio communications are normally meant to be more spot on, and they seem to be the only faction that actually have rules of engagement. For some reason, until
you
certain
want to go
people
to an event where you can't shoot someone until they shoot you.
Yeah,
NATO's the way to go.
Yeah, lots of patrolling and standing to, and it's an interesting one. I find I do quite enjoy NATO because it's a lot more structured. You can't just go, oh, I'm just going to go off for a bimble and just wind someone up. Like, you have to follow, like I said, like rules of engagement. You have you're more likely to get information from zero passed down to you through certain chains. Normally the information that's passed over to you is very basic. So you kind of got a good idea of what you're meant to be doing, but when you're out in the field, you're kind of more reliant on your TL and like radio communications. So I do kind of enjoy it on that side kind of sense. Camo patterns can vary. It all depends on. There normally is a camo pattern, or at least a set look that the organisers want you to go for.
Yeah, I mean, like I guess we use the term NATO to kind of represent a organised military faction, don't we? Because I mean, like the NATO, if you're doing a force-on-force event where you are, well, any other country forces, you could be Poland, you could be Ukrainian forces, you could be Russian forces. It depends on the type of event. But for sort of a force-on-force type thing, that's kind of that kind of general style, isn't it? It's kind of, if anyone's played NATO as an event, be that at like Octo with like a JTF, sort of the Joint Task Force, or task.
They're normally the good guys.
Yeah,
the good.
Yeah.
Sometimes, unless me, Michael, Lance get involved, and then it all goes. It can go tits up very quickly.
Yeah. Well, that nicely rolls on actually to one of my kind of preferred event style factions, which is sort of police, kind of task force, kind of. When I say task force, I don't mean in terms of like a NATO force. It's more like a specialist police grouping type role, so like DEA, SWAT, or something, like something along those roles. Yeah, where it's basically like law enforcement, so you kind of get a little bit more freedom, I would say, like marginally more, but you kind of get the opportunity for kind of more interaction with bad guys. We'll call them bad guys, but like cartels and things like that. I'll never forget one of the events we did where we were the DEA and we were corrupt as fuck, to the point of we found a tiny little bag of like chalky sweets, which were meant to be like representing pills for that event, on like one of the first few people that we searched. And we kept hold of that, and then we found that little bag of drugs on everybody else sequentially that we searched, because that meant that we had legitimate grounds to basically hold them in the prison, and everything like that. So that was great fun. I really enjoyed being corrupt. That kind of role, you generally tend to kind of a little bit more variation with your loadout. So, for example, the DEA, you might have the chance to kind of wear the blue windbreakers with the big yellow DEA on them. You can kind of play around with multicam or OD kit. Obviously, you get the big DEA patches, or the fancy US flags and all of that kind of gubbins. If you're going to go with kind of British CTSFO, you can obviously play around with that. The kind of the grey uniforms like that, and the old classic British bobby armed police is just it's just a good look. So I think there's a lot of opportunities there. But James has chipped in MOD plod sim, where you're just a gate guard. I think would be a hilarious event, and it's something, James, I think we should plan in the future. So I think that'd be great. Just like 2 hours instead of stag duty, it's just 2 hours of paperwork. You get this big stack filling out forms. I think it'd be entertaining. So I mean, I quite like that. I don't really have a problem with it. But, then you've got your kind of insurgents and rebels, Andy.
Well, you've got kind of PMCs before that as well. Like you've kind of got a bit.
Oh yeah, of course, PMCs. Between. I forgot about PMCs.
That's all right. That's why I'm here. I'll carry you on my shoulders, mate. All right, PMC sort of is, I think, the wonder role for a lot of MilSim events. The PMC factions always seem to book up quicker, because you've kind of got a bit of the NATO sort of command structure, but then you're also slipping down the route of, well, I don't really want to do that, so I'll just bomb off and with a couple of lads and just say to my zero, right, we're just going to go out and cause some havoc. And you're a lot more varied in the amount of kit that you can take as well, because obviously we all know PMC will basically they'll use what is available to them or what they can purchase themselves. Kit's normally pretty easy. It's normally tans and civvy clothes with a plate carrier over the top, so you can kind of use what you'd wear as a skirmish. Like especially if you've got a plate carrier or chest rig or something. But you get sort of, I think the PMC role is sort of a really good middle ground if you kind of want to go to a sim and just want to see what it's about, because you get a bit of structure, but you also get a little bit of chaos thrown in with them as well. And you can also, you have a lot of leeway. I find a lot of PMC factions that I've played in the past they're neutral. Like they're there for private firms, their security.
Well, I mean, it's almost
they can change. They can change halfway.
PMC represented some sort of word for private or something like that. That would be amazing.
But they literally like that. But you can change. Like you can help. So normally it tends to be a bad guy faction or insurgents or something. Then a PMC. Then you've got NATO, which seems to be the more common structure for sim events. The PMC guys can literally just do what the hell they want. If they fancy just going, do you know what, we'll help NATO for a bit and get a bit of money off of them, and then 20 minutes later you could go back up to them, and then you're being held at gunpoint because the insurgents have paid them a little bit more money to capture a couple of you, and then the insurgents backstab the PMC, and then it all goes mad. That seems to be the
yeah. I mean, there's you know, from a PMC loadout point of view, you could obviously go like the proper old school, like 80s PMC rolls, sort of like the black. What were they called? They were called Blackwater. Sort of that kind of PMC group, which is kind of almost just shirts, chinos, like a plate carrier or chest rig or something like that, and then, you know, run around with a rifle all the way up to all the way up to for example, like is it White House Down with Channing Tatum, like the PMC element of that took over the White House. I mean, they were a mix of mercenaries really on that front, but you know, that kind of look of almost just a complete mashup of tactical gear, civilian gear, basically whatever kind of you feel comfortable in and playing with. Andy, yeah, James has said, I think Andy has PMC and mercenary confused. The PMC would not swap sides in a realistic setting. Yeah. I think the problem is that mercenary and PMC are kind of blended together always, a little bit.
Yeah, Airsoft, they seem to blend the edges a bit with mercenary. Like they're either put down as mercenaries or PMC, but they seem to have that sort of the same sort of outlay on a lot of events that I've been to. Yes, in a realistic setting, James is absolutely right. They wouldn't swap sides, whereas mercenaries would drop you like as quick as a hat. But
well, I mean, if we use, I mean, obviously this is media culture as opposed to necessarily real world, because I don't have a lot of real world experience when it comes to the inner workings of private military contractors. But I mean, you do see an awful lot of storylines along the basis of, like, you know, you might have the NATO forces in an area. Sorry,
it's all right.
You've got the NATO forces in the area, and you may have some PMC there, but they're whilst they're obviously hired guns by whoever, they might not necessarily align with what the actual government, like NATO forces, want them to be doing, because they might be working for some sort of like covert CIA black ops type mission, which is a bit of a challenge.
It's all right. He's just dying, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, sorry. I'm going to have to top my drink up again in a second as well. But yeah, I mean, that's a Hollywood-esque approach, but it's not too hard to disbelieve that there's obviously going to be groups of people out there that are kind of, I mean, you have it in the UK today, like, you know, different political factions and everything like that have their own different political ideologies, and ultimately the same situation. You might have different people in the same situation, but they've got different viewpoints on what they want to achieve from that. They might align a little bit, but it doesn't necessarily mean they have to align fully.
No,
maybe the objective is to go and capture a load of money off the rebels. One group might want to just safely return that money. One group might just want to burn it for whatever reason. They don't want that money getting back into circulation. I don't know. Yeah, there we go. Gavin, I think sums it up. Bad eggs can exist in any organisation. Airsoft tends to have a condensed time frame, so bad eggs are more frequent.
Yeah. I think with Airsoft, it's like you said, we're in a like a restricted time. Normally like 24 to 48 hours that you've got to get an entire month's worth of storyline played out. So
yeah, it is frustrating when it does flip randomly, though, because it does sometimes feel I mean, I've been to events where, you know, you're running as a private military contractor role / mercenary. I'm gonna blend the two together, where on like one tasking is like, right, we're gonna go and help these people, and then on another tasking, all of a sudden, now we're helping these people. And it's like, oh, I don't know who I'm shooting. Like, Oh, Andy's gone.
Oh no, I'm still here. I think I've kicked the cable off the back of the. Hang
on. James said, just realised I said how PMCs wouldn't swap sides. Then I remember Wagner marching towards Moscow and shooting down Russian aircraft. So I fully retract my statement.
Yeah, I totally forgot about that. Yeah, Wagner were like, yeah, that's fine. Let's go for it.
Yeah. But anyway, that's kind of your PMC mercenaries. You've got your insurgents and rebels. So insurgencies are obviously things like I don't know, sort of Afghan-based games where you've got like I'm going to use that as an example, but it's obviously an insurgency is any occupied country by a we'll call them like a foreign military force, and then it's generally the indigenous population kind of going, no, fuck you, we don't want you here. And that's where the insurgency aspect comes from. It generally tends to be kind of the more civilian aspect. You've just gone very dark now, Andy.
Okay. You can hear me though, yeah?
We can hear you, yeah. Just carry on talking. Just makes great video for anybody watching on YouTube and Facebook.
Yeah.
Kind of the loadouts for kind of rebels, insurgencies, or whatever like that generally tends to be quite event specific, depending on the storyline and the scenario. Also, I mean, depending on the level of immersion that the event is trying to create. So, for example, I'm going to use our Op Phoenix that we did. That was effectively an insurgency style approach. We had a series of crusaders who were led by an ultra right wing religious leader who basically just pulled a load of people together and then they were fighting NATO. And that was an interesting event because we specifically didn't put this team being the good guys, this team being the bad guys. Each team had their own storyline and their own kind of backstories and kind of goals and taskings. And it was interesting to kind of see how through the event people were like, oh, maybe I'm not the good guy. And then we also had civilian groups as well that were kind of almost like the moral. Andy's gone completely now. The good guys, the civilians were almost like the moral arbitrators for the event. So their opinion on who is effectively worth helping or not helping was kind of almost the indications to their approach to who the good guys and the bad guys were. I'll just crack on with that, Andy. You've also got things like drug dealers and cartels. So that kind of ties in with your DEA style events, your police, things like that. So your cartels can be, for some reason, quite often Hawaiian shirts. I'm not quite sure why cartels are seen to always wear Hawaiian shirts. I don't know if that's just a nice airsoft way of kind of aligning cartel groups as to who's wearing what. Right, I was just talking about how cartels are always, for some reason, wearing Hawaiian shirts.
Because standard. Like, yeah. Why change it? Why change a broken rule? Like, why does?
Well, I mean, there's
NATO always wear multicam? It's like
there's a lovely image of like things like Sicario, where you kind of got the Mexican cartels, and you got guys running around with like sleeveless vests or like just no top on at all, and like just loads of tats and stuff like that. And I don't know if the Hawaiian shirts is just because maybe an awful lot of British people can't necessarily pull off that look. I don't know. There's an awful lot of airsoft players that you wouldn't necessarily want running around topless. But yeah,
I'm one of them. That is something that people do not ever want to see. Like that's
they call me Big Hefe.
Yeah.
No one likes to play with me.
Yeah. The bear. I've set him off.
Sorry. So that's your kind of, in a nutshell, your basic factions. So yeah, I mean, you obviously get a few little extras kind of floating around. Things like, for some reason, pirates. It was the first thing that came into my head, and there are no pirate events. I was trying to think of like Vietnam style. So Vietnam, you kind of got
James. I know you're on. I want a pirate event. I want us on boats.
Yes.
I want.
I'm really not.
I want Mike. I want Mike on a peg leg.
I do have a Napoleonic naval jacket. I would quite happily run around as a midshipman. That'd be fine. That'd be grand.
But you've got like especially now, you've got a lot of Russian kit popping up because apparently it's easy to get hold of at the moment. Just speak to any Ukrainian. Like it seems to be popping up more and more. There seems to be a lot of There seems to be a few more force on force events happening as well now, which is interesting to see coming back after a very long stint of not happening. It always used to be.
The problem with force on force was there was nothing wrong with the whole concept of force on force. I think it was the people that went, let's, there's a war that's just started. Let's immediately recreate that scenario. And I think it's like there is an element of time that needs to occur between, what's socially acceptable and then what is airsoft acceptable. Because just
make up. I just mean make up names. It's not hard to make. I come from the country of Jibab Bibibab. Like,
yes, because that's no way racist or anything like that at all.
Well,
I want Wales versus England. That'll be a hilarious game.
Oh God. What, just that everyone dressed up as a load of sheep versus a load of pork pies?
I didn't say that. I was going to say dragons, but you took that in that direction.
Sheep versus pork pies all day long.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a whole plethora of kind of different eras and events and things you could do. I mean, Jigglypuff Gus is quite a good one there. So 80s skinheads and versus punks. Take that back a step. You could have, for example, skinheads and punks versus a police element. You've got like riots and things like that. Maybe an element of civil unrest.
Then that would be more of a police sim, wouldn't it?
It would, but there's nothing wrong with having a police sim. I mean, the problem is if you try to recreate certain historical events, it depends on whether you are trying to accurately depict that. So, for example, if you run a Falklands event where you've got one team is effectively Argentina and one team's the British, you can't have people running around in MTP because it is not realistic to that scenario. But there is nothing to stop you from having an event which kind of maybe runs along the same style, where you've got like a progressive battle line where you have to achieve certain objectives, which is effectively what an awful lot of the Falklands style events that I've been to have kind of played out as. But you can have that as newer factions. The reason that and I don't want to keep harking on about it, it's only because it's something that we did, but Op Phoenix, the whole premise of kind of doing a completely different style of event in that it's kind of a post-apocalyptic world without going down the route of zombies and everything like that, was because it gives you that flexibility that you can do whatever you want. You can take into account historical storylines, completely change it up, and there's you're kind of still playing off that same style of kind of how that played out, but ultimately completely changing it. I mean, there's Belfast, if you want to go down the route of doing like the IRA versus the British Army on that front.
I still think that's
but that's my point. This is the thing. I'm not saying that's a good idea, just to clarify. But the point is that there are different styles of events, because effectively that was an insurgency style of event. Now, a lot of the insurgency style of events that are done are people dressing up as Afghans and the like, and being the Taliban. And to me, there's an awful lot of racism and unfair stereotyping that happens within that kind of role. And it doesn't need to happen, because you don't need to have a scenario that's that necessarily grounded to the point of people are just, throwing around random phrases and things that they've heard. Just, I'm playing this role because it's unnecessary. If you went down the route of a pure insurgency, you could just have an occupying force of, say, taking over London. You just got people playing themselves as normal civilians. And you're still getting that same sort of event. So that's what I'm trying to to say, is that you can have different styles. You can have insurrections, you can have insurgencies, you could have force on force, but you don't have to necessarily have that specific, like, right, no, we're going to tie it to this thing, which, might piss people off, or it might cause some upset. I mean, the American Civil War, maybe we could do the American Civil War, where we've got, that might probably not be the most culturally appropriate thing to suggest at the moment. The American Revolution, the British Revolution, whatever you got. You could have the Indochina War. You could have all sorts of these different scenarios,
but you can have
to tie them to that.
But you can take conflicts from history quite easily. There's enough resources. We're all sitting on the internet. Like, you could literally get some ideas, use the premise and the background of a certain conflict, but you don't have to. This is what I mean by making up names. You don't have to use the names that, like, there was the Russia-China war, weren't there? But you don't have to say Russia versus China, so everyone has to go out and buy a whole load of Russian kit and a load of Chinese kit. It's you're using that as the base of your storyline, which I think would work quite well. Because also as well with that, and I'm sure James might disagree. But you could literally, but you can literally, it doesn't take much to kind of plan out your weekend in regards to scenarios and objectives and things like that, because you're working from history that's already been documented. So you've already got a base, so you're not having to think of anything completely original. But you can use that as a baseline for your event, which I think, and I've been to a couple of those and they've worked really well. As I said, I'm sure James would say, no, it's still an absolute logistical nightmare to organise a bunch of airsofters, which I can 100% agree with. But
that's kind of another
herding cats, isn't it? Sorting our slot out.
I mean, the thing is that if you give somebody a common reference point, so you say, right, we're doing a Falklands event, for all intents and purposes, if they book onto the Argentine side or the British side, they kind of know roughly what the event's going to be like. You can kind of get a bit of a steer. Vietnam versus Viet Cong. Sorry, not Vietnam versus Viet Cong. Vietnam versus US sort of style of event. You kind of got a steer as to how that event is going to go. You can, you know the eras and stuff like that. So it does make it easier from a perspective of that front. But you're right. It depends if the event organisers really want like a strong immersion aspect to it. I mean, like Defiant did an absolutely banging. And he's going to crucify me because I'm going to get this wrong. But it's the Black Hawk Down scenarios.
Somalia and...
Yeah, where they had... I mean, they obviously didn't have Black Hawk helicopters coming in, but they had, like, convoys of vehicles that would bring troops in, and they sort of deploy from those, and then they have to get kind of extracted out.
Yeah, that event got absolute raving reviews. Then everyone that went...
and people really buy into that because they wanted to go down the route of the era appropriate kit and loadouts and things like that. So I can see both sides to it. I think there's scope that we don't always have to necessarily go down the route of, for an insurgency style event, we don't always have to go down the cliche. I personally would like to see more variety on that front, because I think there's a whole load of scope for events and factions and the like that just aren't explored enough. But let's dive into the comments for a second, because there's some quite funny ones coming up, mostly from Jigglypuff.
I've got to admit, he's been on it tonight. He's
suggested, is it too risky to do a political faction game, Labour versus Conservatives?
Jesus.
The thing that got me was the thought of, like, the Green Party are just all snipers. They're just all getting snipers. Just sitting there, just like being at one with the trees. Other ideas were police versus Just Stop Oil.
Yes, that should be in real life.
Skins versus MTP shirts sounds more like a skirmish day, but that would just be horrendous. Like, that's not something I even want to suggest entertaining. I think that would be Gavin says Hawaiian shirts are easy to get hold of than Mexican Santa Muerte for civilians. So yeah,
true. Yeah,
granted. But again, I just why does it have to be bright, colourful Mexican like Hawaiian shirts? Why couldn't it just be like normal t-shirts? It's just a style that people tend to go with, and it just amuses me.
See, I'd quite like to see an event where the mobsters are actually like proper like 1970s monster, like, and they have to walk around in suits all day, like for the whole weekend.
Yeah, like what was there was that film, wasn't there? Like the kids did the replica. No, don't make it weird, with the Tommy guns where they shot like pie, like custard tarts or pies or something.
I have no idea.
It's like a little musical type thing.
I definitely wouldn't watch it.
Bugsy Malone.
Oh, right.
Okay, let's stop throwing in silly ideas now. We've got British versus Aboriginal, which will be horrendous. Gavin's gone beards versus baldies. Like, we're just...
Oh, where do I come with that? I've got a beard,
You're
but
a
I'm
spy,
also quite bald. I'm like, haha, I will play both sides.
Right, what else did we have in here? We had... Gavin said, I had a cartel event where we had cartel, police, and JTF. The alliances were so short-lived, it became a shoot-on-sight situation. That's a challenge. That's a real problem, because if you have that, it is just becomes a skirmish day between three factions, which is always a challenge. Lanav challenge, Op Phoenix, the good guys had the word. So this was an interesting one, because we had certain people not really, because we kept the Op 4 role as a secret, basically. So we kind of announced what the Blue 4 side of things were. So they were the UBGs, so the United British Government, and they were kind of leaving. This was firmly based on the film Doomsday, without any copyright infringement. But, we had them leaving the London safe zone, and they were kind of expanding the empire on that basis. And they came up against the kind of the cult side of things, which I say were deeply religious. But that was an interesting one, because we even had some people like, I don't know if I feel comfortable both playing an ultra religious nut, and then some people kind of going down the route of, I don't want to be portraying a religion at all and stuff like that. And it was like, oh God, okay, well, where does this sit? So hopefully, I think we kind of did quite well on that. I don't think we really.
Yeah, like
I was really worried about missing the mark with it, and like
I think that worked out well, because you could do it a bit like. Do you remember the Saviors off of The Walking Dead, where you're basically with them because you want to survive?
Yeah,
and I think because you gave everyone sort of their own leeway to portray it how they wanted to portray it, it worked out really well.
Yeah, I mean, let's also be honest with you. Of any religious group, I would say, arguably, if you are to portray yourself as a religious minister from the Christian religion, probably less likely to offend people, because I think, and this is weird in popular culture at the moment. Like you look at popular culture, nobody really kind of has a problem when you have like the ultra weird, like fucking priest that just randomly rocks up and he's got no tongue or something like that. It's like, we're the silence type thing. You're like, okay, you're just creepy Christian. Whereas, if certain other religions, I think if you started to portray people like that, I think there's already enough animosity going on with them that like, let's not go there.
So what Mike is saying is about time we picked on the Christians, is what he's saying.
No, I'm not saying we picked on them. I'm not saying we picked them at all. I felt that, because when we wrote that, I felt that like using Christianity as the religion, the focal point of that religion, I felt was probably one of the safer ones to use. American Border Force versus everyone. Oh, that was almost like the MOD police sim. You man a border checkpoint and just people take it in turns to queue up and come through, and like check the cars and stuff. That'd be hilarious.
Well, they actually made a game for that, didn't they? So,
did they?
Yeah, so you're like literally a Russian border guard or something, and you have to check vehicles as they come through. And I was like, this is beyond boring. I was like,
it's like going on GTA and commuting to work.
Yeah,
just sitting in traffic. Phil says, answer, lol. I've played a loosely organised and mildly out of shape Australian force combating an invading foreign force while also being harassed by alien xenomorphs and predators. So that's pretty quirky.
That is. So just a normal day in Oz then, Phil. Yeah. Like that's like. I've seen Border Force on TV, and I've seen the stuff that your customs don't let in.
There was a film based on, it's sort of the Red Dawn. I mean, Red Dawn's actually a really good example of his insurgency kind of route that you could take, where you've got, a stereotypical opposing force. I mean, obviously the first one was the Russians and Cuba, and then the second one was obviously all of Asia, which, however that works, fine. There was also the day after the day after yesterday or something like that, which was set in Australia, which is very Red Dawn-esque as well. So that was about a group of like Australian kids surviving effectively kind of groups of Middle Eastern and Asian countries from kind of taking over parts of Australia for its resources. But again, that's a really good example of how you could have an insurgency type event with a different spin on things.
Yeah, I'd actually quite like to see.
I don't know where the xenomorphs and predators come into that. That's a bit quirky, but yeah.
But I mean, having an event where the insurgents are the good guys would be a wicked event. So your JTF, for example, would actually end up being the bad guys, because it's always the other way around. But it'd be really interesting to see someone do it the other way around. So the insurgents are actually the good guys trying to get the occupying force out of their land. I think that'd be good. I think that'd be a wicked event.
Marky Mark says, I was Afghan Special Forces Badri 313 2 weeks ago at Nico's first event. Yes, I'd be interested, Mark, to hear more about this event, because this was the first of the Stay Low, Move Fast events run by Nico. So yeah, give us a catch up at some point, because I'll be interested to hear how that went. Cool. Right. So let's roll into the kind of the crux of this evening, because I didn't really want to be spending ages talking about stuff that we've gone into before, but there's obviously a lot of potential specialisms that you could have within various factions. So for example, you could have peacekeepers. I am still adamant that having a UN force at an event where you've got effectively like two countries fighting each other, and you've got a UN force that has to patrol a very shaky DMZ or something like that would be very entertaining. You've got the whole media aspect as well. So, if you've got like a little media team that can go around, and whilst they're not necessarily playing an active fighting faction per se, they're obviously still a faction at the event. Civilians, if you've got like undercover CIA and stuff, you can have like little subtext stories and things going on. So there's an awful lot of kind of little specialisms like that.
Yeah. Well, I did.
Andy, is there anything?
Yeah, I was just going to say,
is there anything that you've seen along that line?
Yeah, so I did an event, and we were playing Op 4, and for the first day we were like just walking around causing a bit of problems for the NATO force or whoever. I can't remember who it was, but they're all in camo, and they were like doing a force action. And then as the day progressed, they started to be everywhere that we were going to be. And yet they started to really emphasize that we might have someone within our ranks that was a spy. And literally they had chosen two people that had booked on for ours, and they sent them an email saying, do you fancy being a spy and trying to get information over to JTF? Like, we'll give you like, they had a radio that was linked to their zero, and I'll tell you what, they played it bloody well. But it took us probably the good part of the first day to find the first person, because we couldn't do anything, because every time we went out to do something, there was a force sitting there waiting for us. And it was a really good spin on the event, because then after a while, everyone's like, are you a spy? And there was some executions that shouldn't have happened. It added a really, really good spin onto what would be just a normal MilSim event for the Op 4 side of things. Because Op 4, I find, is quite a although they've got no sort of I say structure, but you know what I mean. They've got no sort of they've got objectives. I don't know how to word it. My brain's gone blank.
Well, this ties
they're quite relaxed, and they can pretty much do what they want. But as soon as you start realizing, well, actually, hang on a minute, every time we go to do something and get our objectives, there's a force there. So we're actually getting our asses handed to us, and we're not doing anything about it. and then you realize that you've got a spy in your ranks, like it's something else, because then all of a sudden your radio chatter goes different. Everyone's kind of being a little bit more cagey about what we're doing. There's less information being passed down to basically the grunts, so the team leaders and the TLs and stuff for your section aren't passing down as much information down to you guys. And it was really good. Like, and the guys that they chose, and I found out at the end of it, it was random. They literally just picked out 2 names and just emailed them.
It'd be funny as fuck if they went, "Do you want to do this?" No, nah.
Yeah.
Balls, we shouldn't have asked those people.
Yeah. Like I think they were like regular players.
Yeah.
But they said it was the first time they'd ever tried something like that, and that was proper good. And then when we found the first one, that was hilarious because he tried running, and we were like, "Where are you running to? All your kit's here." And he was like, "Go away, leave me alone." Just ran off into the woods. But like,
I really
it
like.
was really good.
I really like when you have like a dynamic event. So it's hard because I appreciate the fact that, you know, event organizers want to plan for the event. So for example, there'll be like set pieces that they want to have happen and stuff like that. So it's not the easiest to have a completely dynamic event, because ultimately it's like, well, yeah, we've planned this massive explosion over here at like 2:00. And then you're like, well, that didn't happen because they didn't go and do the objective to then make that a thing. But I really like when, you know, say that you are like a one faction in like a multi-faction game, and how like another faction will help you is dependent on how you act towards them throughout the event. You know, so if you're rocking up and slotting them every time you see them, and then it's not really a surprise why they suddenly have joined the other team. It kind of makes sense. And I think that's where like mercenaries and things can play in quite well. It's a case of, you know, if you've got like a main kind of thing going on here, you know, the actions of how certain like side objectives and stuff. All right, did you go and collect enough cash that you could pay your mercenaries to come and help you? Have you undertaken war crimes that the mercenaries might get a bit pissed off with? So I think that's a really nice way of making an event.
And also, I do find that, PMC and mercenaries, they tend to be used by the organisers a lot more to steer the event in the direction that they want. I know Octo do that quite well. They use the PMC force to kind of steer the games if it's going really skew with, or because they did that at the event where we got hemmed in that corner and literally couldn't do anything. But they used the PMC to kind of like come up and help us get out of basically the spore.
But it was the PMC that was holding us in there at one point. Like that was the problem.
Because that was what they were paid to do. So they the organisers literally turned around and was like, right, well, this isn't working. We'll have to sort of change it ever so slightly. Whereas if you give like I always find PMC and mercenary sort of like the middle floaty section. Normally it's the insurgents or the cartel versus JTF or NATO or whoever. And then the third faction is literally there as a sort of control.
So I'm this will be a test to see if James is still in the chat or not, because he'll start shouting at me that I'm making it too complicated. I personally love events where you've got like maybe more than like 3 or 4 factions. So you've got literal different groups of people that you're engaging with, and then your immersion and things like that kind of comes into the fact of like, you know, you've got almost like resource management in terms of your allies and who you're not allies with, and you've got PID and making sure that, you know, your squad of people, you know, however many of you aren't going to light up the people that you've just made an alliance with. I think when you've got shoot or no shoot scenarios, always makes a game more interesting. So if you are storming a building, you can't just slot everybody that moves within that building. Potentially you've got you storm a building and inadvertently you find out it's a hospital full of civilians. Maybe there's some insurgents hiding in there, but you've got to properly room clear. You can't just lob grenades in every room going,
but then James and Kev did that really well at the Red Tide. Was it Red Tide 3 where we're at HQ? Where it was you and me that got captured? And so literally the task force couldn't go in there and slot everyone in the building because me and Mike were the HVTs and we needed to be taken alive. And I think that added a real excitement for them, but because there were so many of us, we held it off quite well. We actually kind of
there wasn't that many of us, but there was a lot less of them than there were meant to be. I think that was part of the problem.
And we had quite a good place upstairs.
I was hiding in a cupboard.
Yeah, you were hiding in a cupboard, and then I just sat in a room just on my own with a grenade in front of me. But they took 15 minutes to edge their way in. But that's what I mean.
Stephen Whitehead says gun gamers in the US had some really fun looking games with their Eastern European themed events. People running businesses and an in-game economy. They had Wolf Cola running as like a CIA front. See, that's cool. That's a nice idea. And it would be quite cool as well if you had how you ticket this is a different thing. Because some people will just go and rock up to an event. And I've done this before, just as I'm just here to basically play a character. Because, for me, MilSim, and I've said this before, is not just about getting gun time and going and shooting people. It adds to the effect, and the whole, I could be killed or I can kill someone else. It does make that kind of a little bit more interesting. But the ability to go right, well, I'm here. I'm going to basically run a shop and sell things, and then the task force come in and they sort of like mess your shop up, and you're like, well, now I'm going to help the rebels. I think it's just a cool idea. I think it works. Right, I did want to ask the audience again, so a little bit of a Q&A for the audience,
a bit of participation activities for everyone.
It's now join-in time.
Yes.
Basically, I've got a couple of questions that I was hoping that some of our audience will answer. So, what's the most difficult faction that you have had to play? So, for example, you might have found it difficult not from the way the event was run. So, if it was a really bad event, I don't want to hear about that. This is a positive.
Yeah, we don't care. We don't care about your poor events.
No, I want to find out basically what was it as a challenge because of the faction itself. So, for example, say that you were task force and the ROE was a nightmare because you've got loads of people out there, but you can't shoot them until one of them shoots you. So you kind of effectively got to take casualties before you can return fire. So I'd be interested to hear on that front. And then also, how do you get into character for different factions? Do you go down the route of trying to build your character for a certain faction, or do you literally just rock up at an event and go, well, I'm NATO, hello? Just to hear like that as well.
Yeah.
So
I think NATO on that front, I think it's a lot more harder to portray a character because you're there just to portray a grunt. Whereas I think with like Op4 forces or insurgency forces, you can go there with a lot more freedom in regards to having like building your own character, like owl watching at night.
I'll be honest with you, I disagree slightly because I think you can have, and it depends on how much when you're there as a grunt, what your kind of engagement is with other factions. So, for example, if you are literally just standing in the back the whole time because your TL gets all the kind of the talkie time with the immersion and everything like that, and all kind of the role play stuff, then yeah, granted, that's going to be a bit naff. But you can go to an event and go, well, am I going to be, am I going to be open and trying to like, hearts and minds, or am I just going to be like, no, fuck off, you go over there, you stay over there, I'm not hearing from you.
Yeah.
So you can kind of take that approach with it.
Or loose cannon, or just a murderer.
Yeah. Sorry, Gavin has just said drug running as cartel because there were no non-faction civilians to hide amongst. So every civilian was searched. Yes, I can see that. That's where you need the civilian element in there. You need to.
But then again, you say that because we had a similar sort of issue where not many people turned up to, unfortunately, one of Defiant events up at HQ. So there wasn't much area for mingling. It was red tide.
Yeah. So when you say not a lot of people turned up, they had quite a small civilian.
Yeah, a small. They had a lot more people say that they were going to come, and then a lot of people didn't turn up for various reasons, from what I understand. So that made it quite difficult. But then again, all of Saturday, me and Ash just wandered around with a bin that we found on site and just walked around with a wheelie bin and didn't get searched once. So you can make it work to your advantage.
I think not knowing who's booked onto the event helps as well. So, for example, if you're going to be booking onto an event and you've got like public groups, it's like, yeah, no, I am categorically this team or this team. You know, we did Mac Alpha with Defiant because people had said that they were going to the event, you know, as the task force team, because we knew, or the NATO, whatever we were, because we knew who was on our side, we actually started building profiles of who potentially was going to be in the game, which means that we were able to, and I've done this at other Defiant events as well. So like it gets to the point of like, you're like, right, we've got to try and work out who the cartel leader is. And we're like, right, we've got a name. So we think it's this person. And you're going through like the booking pages for the event on Facebook, like, right, who's booked in with the name like Bob? Like, right, okay, so there's 3 Bobs. So it's one of these 3 people. Right, we've now got profile pictures from Facebook. That then gets issued to like a WhatsApp group. Then everyone's like, oh, hang on. All right, you're a Bob. Right, I need to follow you. So I think that's an
then that's cheating.
Aspect. No, it's not cheating because it's building up a profile. And I think that's genuinely part of it, because if you go to an event where, you know, you've got a civilian element, say you've got like 10 people playing civilians or 20 people playing civilians, don't tell people how many people there are, because if you've got a group of rebels, say, just if they know that there's 10 civilians there and there's 20 people in front of them, they know that roughly half of them are going to be rebels and half of them are going to be civilians. If you tell them there might be a rebel faction, who knows? You know, if you see someone with a gun, probably more likely to be a rebel. And then that person's face then becomes ingrained within that event. That's the thing. So you can't have it so that people just randomly go, oh no, I'm not a rebel anymore because I left my gun in my room. So I'm now just a civilian. Because as a task force thing, you're like, no, because I literally got shot at by you 20 minutes ago. I know it's you. Like, you can say whatever you want to say about you, but I know that you're a rebel. So I think if you're going to be doing like an insurgency style thing, you know, trying to keep factions separate does work quite well. And I think I can't remember. There's another event that we've done that at where we got kept separate. I think it was an SEO event actually that we did where you didn't know how many of the enemy team there were. So we entered the AO. We knew that there were like 10 of us. And then we were like, well, we literally have no idea how many of them there are. So, you know.
It was the joint SEO one that we did at the site, wasn't it? Where we literally didn't know how many there were.
So you don't know if there's going to be a force assault, whether you're fighting 2 people. You could be fighting 5. You could be fighting 2 times your team number. So that's that again. I think it's another dynamic that builds into the intel gathering and things with factions as well. So, you know, I know we joked about paperwork and stuff like that, but I think having a whiteboard in a you know an intel zone or your 0 or something like that, where they're actually having to go, right, hang on, we've got contact over here and contact over here. So there's at least 2 enemy. How many people you fighting? How many people you fighting? And you can build up a picture as to what your combat is.
Start getting your digital Polaroid. Start taking photos and sticking them sticking them on the walls. You'd have a field day over that, wouldn't you? You'd be
Andy stayed at my house the other day, and we were playing with my daughter's little digital camera. So she's got like a little thermal printout camera. It's almost like a receipt reader, isn't it? With a camera.
It was actually pretty good.
But we've done events before where we were DEA or police or whatever like that, and the cartel. You had to try and work out who was running the cartel and the kind of the tree. So every time you interrogated people, having their photo was really freaking helpful, because like if you've got 30 to 40 enemy players, well, you're not going to remember who's who, aren't you? Like, I think it's a Steve. I think Steve's the guy. I think we need to find Steve. What does Steve look like? I don't know. I do.
But you had him here.
The thought of having like this little camera that could just do, it's like a Polaroid thing, but it just basically prints like a receipt type thing with your face or something on, would be quite handy, because you could pin that to a wall and go, right, that's Steve.
get your string out and do it.
Well, we've done that. I've done that at Apocalypse. We did an Apocalypse DEA event where we literally had a wall, like it was Sharpie. We're like, right, writing out who the names of everyone were, because it was so freaking chaotic to try and remember how this structure was. There were 2 different cartel teams, and they knew that they had this weird hierarchy thing that we had to figure out. So they put dead ends in it, which was really hard to work. They were like, are you in charge? And then they went, no, actually, I report to the bottom down here. The maths of it is quite entertaining, but that's another thing that you can bring into different factions to make that entertaining. Stephen Whitehead says, we're already planning for the next Octo event, American Militia. We've got some interesting civ pop ideas. Got a couple of us posing as livestock agents and rangers, so we can walk around and blend in with other civvies.
Someone's been watching Yellowstone.
But that's a point. Good point, Stephen. Problem with small events is that intel phase becomes pretty short, and you only get a couple of interactions before everyone knows who's who. But that's the thing, though. If you don't all arrive at the site in the same location or at the same times, not necessarily. And if you throw in multiple factions, so if you book onto an event, you go, right, I know that there's a JTF, I know that there's a mercenary, and I know that there's a rebel. Well, you're going to be one of those 3 things. 1/3 of those is ruled out because you know that they're on your team. So you're like, right, well, we know who's on our team. And then if you've got really strict uniform rules and things, it's like, well, that's JTF because they're all dressed in multicam. I don't know. I'm getting quite animated about it. I like it's when it's hard.
Yeah, it's when you're at the beginning of an event.
Don't quote that.
Yeah, I was trying not to. Yeah, when you're at the beginning of the event and you know there's a HVT that you need to capture for this event because you've had a briefing for the event already, and then you all get together, and then you see the HVT just standing there. Right, and you go, oh, okay, there he is.
Yeah, well, we've had safety briefings with everyone in one place, and it's like, well, I know that we're going to be tracking somebody here, so just take a little cheeky video of everyone in their safety. Right, so it's one of these people. Stephen Whitehead, again, big issue is everyone being safety briefed together. Why do they have to be safety briefed together?
Yeah,
doesn't need to be. You've got quite successful paintballing companies, for example, do safety briefings by video now. You literally just sign a digital waiver to say that you've watched a video.
You've got 0. So when you're at your cat, like when you're at your, why doesn't your 0 give you the safety brief? Because I would have thought your 0 would be part of the marshalling team. It's not too hard to give.
Well, it's a simple thing. If you've got a civilian population that are going to be in the AO first, they have a safety brief, and then they get let off to the game zone. If you then got a military force or whatever that's going to be coming into that AO, they can be done last. And then if you've got mercenaries that are going to be floating around, do them in the middle, and then that's your hierarchy. And okay, you've got to do 3 safety briefs as a event organizer. If you've got limited numbers of people, that would be a way around that for straight off. It's boring for you, granted, but the people playing, you're not having that. And you could do it like an ops room type thing. There's nothing to stop you. Like if you've got a special forces type things, putting people in like an ops room, put them in all chairs and just having a safety brief with them.
Yeah.
Treat that like part of the event. It doesn't have to be this whole right now, before we all start, we all need to learn not to take your iPro off during the game.
Yeah.
And I grant you, it's an important message, obviously needed with insurances and stuff like that. I haven't got a problem with that.
Like BritTac used to do that really well. BritTac used to do that. So you turn up, and each faction would just get sent straight to, like, your cars would get sent straight to where you're unpacking. You unpack your kit, and then either each faction has their own car park, or they hold you in one area until one area of the car park's clear. Like one faction's area is clear, and then once they've all gone, then they move your faction into the car park. So you're always kind of within yourself. And then they used to do it, especially at the Camp Sparta. You'd have your safety briefing, and they'd stagger the safety briefings. So JTF or NATO or whoever it was would have their in like a proper ops room. But the cartel or whoever was against you had already had their briefing about 15-20 minutes before. So they've had their safety briefing, and then they'd come out, get into positions around your ops room, and then as soon as the safety briefing's finished and you're walking back, they'd attack, or it would be the other way around, like JTF have set up. And it worked really well, because as soon as the safety briefing's done, you're in it, and they're like, right, that's it, you're ready to go now. And the absolute panic on people where they've just gone into the safety brief and they've just got their iPro on and they've got no weapons with them. And and literally at the beginning they said, you can be attacked at any time as of now. And you're like, they're mid safety brief. Like, and then as soon as the safety brief finishes, and then you're attacked. Brilliant. Loved it.
I think you definitely need to have a safety brief, because unfortunately there will always be people in this world that you have to tell not to lick the railway line.
Yeah, sorry.
You know, common sense is a complete myth, because that assumes that everyone has the same logical viewpoint, and it's not a thing. So I get the safety briefs need to happen, but at the same time, you know, Delta Force paintball, I'm going to use them as an example. They deal with people on a regular basis who do not paintball, right? So you get Joe Blogs literally rocked up, stupid Joe. He rocks up to a paintball event, and they have like a virtual online briefing. So obviously they can kind of, right, watch this, and then you need to tick a box to say that you've watched it. So from a disclaimer point of view, they've kind of covered off the long safety brief stuff, and then maybe they have a shorter safety brief on the day, covering like the more event specifics, maybe the more basic stuff. Gavin says Mac Delta aren't having a safety brief. You can't be safe. You're off site. So that's an interesting one.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, there's different ways of doing safety briefings and stuff like that, and I feel that especially with smaller events, if you do have small groups of people, keeping them separate is even better, because, you know, and if people play the event correctly, then that kind of intel gathering phase shouldn't be quick. It should almost last like maybe the whole Saturday over a 2-day event, depending on how quickly people want to get their gun on. And then, you know, you run the risk of, if people go, oh, I'm going to go hot too quickly, then yeah, you've got the risk of it's going to turn into a skirmish, because it's like, right, well, I've already identified you as a hostile. So yes. Right, let's run through some more of the comments. Phil done. Right, Phil. At the event I mentioned earlier, we had a squad of Vietnam era soldiers time trap. What the fuck were you at?
Jesus, really what event is this?
So to clarify, what was this? You had, I can't remember what the rest of it was. You had the Xenomorph.
Yeah, Xenomorph, alien, Predators.
Yeah, oh yeah, because Alien is a Xenomorph. Come on, I get credit for at least remembering the word Xenomorph.
Yeah.
Right, okay, so you had a squad of Vietnam-era soldiers time travel into the game 6 hours ahead of the other two factions, like they had been snapped up by the Predators' game to hunt. That's quirky.
Right,
I mean, this game sounds very confusing.
It's mental. It sounds mental. How many beers did you, Phil? Honestly, how many beers did you had? Like, was this an actual event, or were you just running around?
And then there was a big pink rabbit just jumping around.
Yeah.
Pegasus says maybe rebels should always be full face covered when they're out as rebels and change their clothes for the civvies.
Mm-hmm.
That's interesting. I mean, you could theoretically, I guess, have everyone rock up in MTP gear or civilian gear and then get them all to change into different clothes. I don't know. That's a way of doing it. I think personally, if you've got a team that's pretty switched on, and you book onto an event, you're going to have a rough steer as to who's on your team and who's not. So it's a challenge. I mean, maybe even if you book on, maybe keep the teams separate so you don't know who's on the enemy team. So you don't have like a full all back, for example. You've got your team's names, but then how the rest of it's managed, it's all OPSEC. Don't
know.
Yeah. Les says the SEO event, I was at the HVT. Oh, sorry. The SEO event, I was the HVT that nobody knew I was attending. Yeah. It was interesting to see you in the middle of the woods, Les. Becca says CTFO was an interesting role, having to breach a potential hideout and having to ID targets before engaging. I mean, we've all played the COD game, where you storm into the building and you've got people holding hostages or just randomly in the room, and you're like, oh, I don't know. And then you have to kind of wait until they go, oh, and then you shoot them. It makes it more interesting. Mike just dropped me a message or something about the SLMF event. I will do, mate. Landnav Challenge is talking about, can I link my Prime to the channel? I have no idea what you're talking about. Can you pop us a message afterwards, because this sounds fancy? I'd be interested to find out what this is. I'm assuming not Optimus.
Really?
I'm assuming like Amazon Prime.
To be fair, I could see Pat being Optimus Prime. He'd make quite a good Optimus Prime. He's got the voice for it.
That's weird. Roscoe, the UN Peacekeeper game has a Cypriot Nicosia vibe. That would be cool. And again, with a loadout, costume-wise, I call it costume because it basically is costume. MTP is easy enough to get hold of. Most people have got an MTP loadout. Whack a blue beret on. Job done. You're UN now. It's easy enough. I think it would just be cool watching a gaggle of, 10 poor sods dressed as UN trying to keep the peace between two warring factions, or
gaggle
aid stations, or an election or something like that. I just think it would be quirky.
I like the word. I like the use of gaggle there, though, mate.
A gaggle of UN.
A gaggle of UN.
A gaggling, we'll call them. Les says Lance is working sadly, but me and Danny will be at Op Mac Delta. So let us know how it goes, and also link up with Gavin because I think he's coming. So I think probably running out of time. I feel like we're kind of got to the end of that.
We've exhausted it.
Yes. Prime is a Twitch subscription model where you get funded from Amazon Prime subs. Ooh, I'll be honest with you. I'm not completely clued up on Twitch. We normally only have one Twitcher.
I think we have 3 now, don't we?
Well, Patrick was on there earlier. I don't know who's on there now. I think it might be Gavin or Jigglypuff Gus, but I'll look into it. I've got other projects that I need to do for NoFo first.
He's got a lot of projects.
Like Schmags, the people are hounding me for patches, clothes, pants, all sorts of things. There's a whole lot of stuff that I need to. Somebody asked me the other day if we could get some NoFo pants in.
No,
I haven't given it too much thought, but I can source some if we need to.
No.
Yeah,
I don't want my face anywhere near people's crotches unless I'm openly willing to it.
It was the back of the pants, I think. That's what I was thinking about.
Oh yeah.
Right. There we go. If you have any interesting factions that you want to share, then please feel free to throw them in the comments to the video afterwards. You can do so on Facebook or YouTube. You can also find us as an audio-only subscription as a podcast on things pretty much like your nearest Amazon, Google, or whatever home device you have. You can actually ask us to play, which is quite quirky. So try that if you get bored. Yeah, you can. Just literally say, play the latest.
Alexa, play NoFo.
No, November Foxtrot. It won't get NoFo.
Why not?
Try it. Ask it to play the November Foxtrot podcast.
It's unplugged. I just shouted at it.
it.
I just shouted at it, and it just sat there and didn't do anything. So I think I've unplugged it.
Excellent. If you want to get in touch with the show, you can do so on email, nofochat@hotmail.com. Our Instagram is @November_Foxtrot_NoFo, and the website is novemberfoxtrot.co.uk. You can also get in touch with us on our own individual Instagrams @9volt Airsoft for myself, @callsign_quartermaster for Andy, or @the_punished_1_ for Lance. Next week, I'll be honest with you, I think we're just going to do it. Oh no, we've got Tony. Of course, we've got Tony.
Hopefully.
If we don't have Tony,
we'll have someone.
Reason, we will do a Q&A. We'll do a Q&A. We might get a guest on to do a Q&A with, because that might be quite a quirky idea. But we'll work on that basis. So if you've got any questions you want to throw for our Airsoft MilSim Q&A, then please feel free to do so.
Yeah. Or any questions for Tony.
Yeah, or questions for Tony. Just keep them about Airsoft, please, or MilSim, or the Blackstone CQB site. Don't just start throwing random questions in about medical maladies and things like that. We don't have the expertise to help you with your rash.
No.
I think that's pretty much it. I did just want to mention the 10th Legion Airsoft team are obviously still raising money for their Walk the Wall. So if you are interested in giving them a little bit of support, then please feel free to head over to their Instagram at the 10th Legion _Airsoft team. They were on last week, so if you want to find out more about what they're doing, go and check that out. Yes, well, they were on last episode 190. There you go.
We're nearly at 200. Holy crap.
We are nearly at 200. There's 9 more episodes to go and we're at 200, which I think, ironically, is actually around the Christmas episode. So we may be doing episode 200 in the new year, because we do have a bit of a break around Christmas. But it'll be an exciting show, and we do need to plan some special stuff for it. I think with some giveaways and stuff would be good.
Might even be all together.
Hopefully. We missed Lance massively. Big shout out to Lance.
Big cuddles, big kisses.
Tough, unfortunately, when other commitments jump in. So we get it.
Yeah.
So
but we all understand.
Right, on that note, I'm going to have the closing words this week, which is just because. No, because everyone else normally has it. I normally people. I'm going to have it this week. So I'm just going to say, just because other sites do the cliche, fight the norm and come up with novel ideas. They might not all work. Not every new idea is a winner, but have a go. Try something new. I think that's the Sainsbury's motto. So there you go. Not a sponsor yet. Try something new today. Or taste the difference. I don't know.
No, taste the difference.
I'm on a lot of medication at the moment. On that note.
Yeah, well done, Mike. Brilliant last words.
Thank you.
Bye, Mike.
Right, we'll see you later. Have a good week. Stay NoFo, ciao, Bella, and all that funky jazz. See you later.
See you later, guys. And girls. And the girls, if they're listening.
Yeah.
Bye. At least that worked.